Hey folks, welcome again to another live session by Great Learning. And today we've got this cricket dataset with us, and we'll be working with that cricket dataset. So before we start off, we'd have to do some customary things. So we have a free learning platform called as Great Learning Academy, where we have different courses with respect to different domains such as artificial intelligence, data science, and a lot more. I'll just open up the site and show you guys. So this is Great Learning Academy, and you'll be able to find the link for GLA in the chat section. So as you see, we've got courses related to all of these different domains over here. And as you complete any of this course, you'll be getting a course completion certificate, and you can add that certificate onto your resume or onto your LinkedIn page, and that'll be a huge value add for you folks. And also, all of these courses have been curated by industry experts who have their masters or PhD from Ivy League schools such as Stanford and IT in India. And if you're someone who'd want to learn through an app, so let's say somehow during this lockdown, if you don't have your laptop with you, and for the ease of learning, if you do want to learn through an app, we have the Great Learning app as well, and you will find the link for the app in the chat. So before we head on to the data analysis part, I would like to give you a bit of context on the different libraries which we'll be using. So we'll mostly be working with the pandas library and the matplotlib library. So I'd like to give you guys a brief info about these libraries before we head on with the actual project for the session. And we'll start off on that note. So if you guys could just give me a quick confirmation if you can hear me, and if you can also see my screen, that'll be great. Can I get a quick confirmation, please? So that would be a 10 to 15 second delay. Garwith says yes. Great. If the other folks could also give me a confirmation, that would be great. Radhika says yes. Rajsekhar says yes. Okay, that's amazing. Alright. So for those folks who are actually new on our channel, if you haven't yet subscribed, I'd like to request you folks to hit the subscribe button, because it will encourage us to come up with more such live sessions on a regular basis. And also, if you hit the subscribe button and click on the bell icon, you will be notified of all of the new sessions which we conduct. So on that note, I would like to start off today's session. So we'll be starting with this library called as pandas, which stands for panel data. And if we want to do any sort of data manipulation or data wrangling on top of a table, then this needs to be our go-to library. So as it is stated over here, so pandas would provide us single-dimensional and multi-dimensional data structures, and the single-dimensional data structure is known as the series object, and the multi-dimensional data structure is known as the data frame. So we'll start off the single dimensional labeled array, which is the series object. So if we'd have to work with the pandas library, we'd have to start off by importing the pandas library. So we'll type import pandas as PD. After we import it, we'll have to create the series object. So we'll have pd.series, and inside this we will be passing in a list. So here, as you see, I am passing in a list of values starting from 1 going on till 5, and that I am storing it in this new object called as S1, and I print it out. So if you see over here, I have all of these numbers and we have the indices for these numbers over here. And in Python, you'd have to remember that the index value starts from 0. So element 1 is present at index 0, element 2 is present at index 1, element 3 is present at index 2, and so on. And after I create this series object, when I look at the type of this, you will see that, so type of S1, you will see that this is pandas.core.series.series, which is basically a series object. So I'll actually quickly head on to Jupyter Notebook. Let me open up Jupyter Notebook over here. So this is how Jupyter looks like. I'll just open up a new Python file over here, and I'll start off by importing pandas. I'll have import pandas as pd. Then going ahead, I'll just wait for a couple of seconds for this library to be loaded. So when you're loading Jupyter Notebook for the first time, it might just take a bit more time. In the meanwhile, I'll just write the next set of commands, so pd.series, and inside this I'm passing in a list of values. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and this I will go ahead and store in an object called as S1. Now if I print out S1, you will see that this is the result which I get. Now after this, if I would want to check the type of this, so inside the type method I will be passing in the object S1, and you would see that this is what I get. So we have created the series object. Now after this, so as you see, we have the indices over here, and if I would want to change the index values, so by default the index values which you get are numeric and the initial value starts from 0. But if I don't want it like that, if I want to give some other index values, then in that case I can just add this attribute called as index, and I will pass in a list of new indices which will be replacing these old set of indices. So here what I'm doing is I'm giving these new set of indices which are A, B, C, D, and E. So I'll just show you guys how it's done. I'll copy the same command, I'll paste it over here, and what I'll be doing right now is I'll add this attribute called as index, and inside this I'll be passing in new set of indices. So I'll have A, B, C, D, and E. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have 5 labels over here. Then I'll print out S1. Let me print this out, and as you guys see, this is what I get. So I have the series object where I have all of these values, and these are the indices corresponding to these values. So earlier we had created a series object from a list. Now let's see how to create a series object from a dictionary. So dictionary, you can consider it to be a data structure which comprises of key value pairs. So as you see over here, inside this we are passing in this dictionary where we have the set of key value pairs. So here we have A, 10, B, 20, and C, 30. So A, B, and C are the keys, 10, 20, and 30 are the values. Let me head back over here. So pd.series, I'll have this. Let me give in the first key. So first key value pair. Then I'll have B, 20. After this I'll have C, 30. And this I'll just go ahead and store in a new object called as S2. Now if I print out S2 over here, you will see that the keys become the index and the values over here become the values of the series object as well. So this is what happens if you try to create a series object from a dictionary. Now, once this is done, we will again try to add or change the index values. So as you see, here we have A, B and C as the initial index values. Now what I'm trying to do over here is I am trying to add one more index value. But the problem is initially we have only 3 keys and 3 values. But when I'm adding this parameter called as index, and over here I'm providing 4 keys. So, and also if you notice, I am changing the order of the indices. So what happens over here is initially the sequence will be A, B and C, but since I'm changing the order, I'll have first B20, C30. I don't have a key called as D over here when I'm creating the series object, so that is why I'll have NaN, which basically means a null value over here. Then I'll finally have A, and the value for A will be 10. And when I print it out, this is the result which I get. So let me copy this again. I'll paste it over here, and this time again I'll be using the index attribute, and over here let me just pass in a couple of index values. So I'll have B, then I'll have D, then I'll have A, then I'll have C, and let me print out S2 over here. And as you see, I have changed the sequence of the elements which are present. So now that we have created a series object, if I want to extract individual elements which are present in it, so let's say if I have this normal series object where I have indices like these, I'll print out S1 again. And let's say if I want to extract the second element, so the second element is present at index number 1. So what I'll do over here is I'll write S1, and inside parenthesis I'll give in 1, and as you see I'm able to extract the element number 2 from this. If I'd want to extract the last element, so for last element the index value we'll have to give in -1. So seems like we have an error actually over here. So maybe instead of -1, what we'll do is we'll just give in 4 over here, because that will also work. So as you see, when I give in the index value of 4, I'm able to extract the last element from this. So this is all about your single dimensional data structure, which is a series object. And now we'll head on to the two-dimensional data structure, which is a data frame. So a data frame gives you rows and columns. So you have data in both the dimensions. Now, a data frame, if you have worked with SQL or Excel, then you can consider this to be a table format. And if you'd want to represent or work with table formats in Python, the analogous format will be a data frame. So here we are creating a data frame from a dictionary. So first again we'd have to import the pandas library, and after we import the pandas library, here I am creating this data frame by using pd.dataframe method. And here you'd have to keep in mind that the D and F are capital over here. So let's say if you give either the D or F as small, or both of them are small, then you will get incorrect result, or you'll basically get an error. So pd.dataframe, and inside this I'm passing these key value pairs. The first key is name, and I'm giving the list of names for that. Then the next key is marks, and I'm passing in a list of marks over here. So now if you look at this dictionary, you will see that the keys become the column names and the values become the records over here. So name is the first column, and Bob, Sam and Annie become the records. Then we have marks, which becomes the second column, and these list of values become the records over here. So now if I go back what I'd have to do is, since I actually have pandas imported, I don't have to import it again. So I'll just directly write down pd.dataframe, and inside this I'll just pass in a dictionary. So first I'll give in the name of the column, which is name, and then I'll pass in a list of values. So actually name, maybe I'll give in the first name as Raj, the second name as Howard, the third name as Sheldon, and I'll have the second key over here. So the second key would become marks, and then I'd have to pass in a list of values for this. So let's say Raj has scored 70 marks. Then we have Howard, who has scored 80 marks. Then we have Sheldon, who has scored 90 marks. Now I'll just click on run, and you'd see that this is what I get. Let me actually store this in a new object, and I'll call that object to be df. I'll print out df over here, and this is the result which I get. So this is how a data frame works. Let me actually show you the type of this. So I'll have type of df, and I will hit on run, and you would see that this tells you it is pandas.core.frame.dataframe, which essentially means that this is a data frame object. So this is how you can create a data frame. Now let's see some methods on top of this data frame. So for this, now what we've done is we've actually created a data frame, but mostly in Python, if you'd have to work with some inbuilt CSV files or inbuilt tables, you can directly read them using this pandas library. So for this, now whenever we talk about a CSV file, what is a CSV file? CSV stands for comma separated value. So all of the Excel files which you have, they're mostly stored with the extension .csv, and we'll be loading them up with the help of this pandas library. So I have this CSV file in my Jupyter notebook called as iris. So I'll start off by loading that particular file. So I'll write down pd.read_csv, and inside this I'll have iris.csv, and I will store this in an object called as iris. So now once I store this, I'll look at the head of this. So head is something which will give me the first 5 records of the data frame, and I'll hit on run. So now this method will help me to load a CSV file. I've loaded it and I've stored it in the iris object. Then the head method will help me to look at the first 5 records, and this is what I'm doing. So this iris data frame comprises of these columns. So we've got sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and species. And this basically denotes the different species of the iris flower. So you've got the setosa, virginica, and versicolor species for this iris flower. Now, similar to the head, so initially the head method gives you 5 records by default. Now instead of the 5 records, if I would want to look at the top 10 records, I'll just give in the value 10 inside the method, and you will see that I have extracted the top 10 records from this. Now a method which is analogous to the head method is the tail method, and here what I'll be doing is I'll write down iris.tail, and inside this I will just pass in or I can just directly hit run, and you would see that I've got the last 5 records. If you look at the index values over here, the index value starts from 145 and it ends at 149. So we've got the last 5 records. So we've got the last 5 records from the iris data frame. And similarly, if I want to get the last 10 records, I'll just pass in the value 10 over here. and you would see that I've extracted the last 10 records. Then if I want some basic information about the different numeric columns which are present, so what I'll do over here is I will write down iris.describe, and when I hit on run, you'll see that I've got all of these information about these different numerical columns. So let's say if I want to find out the mean sepal length, you can directly find it over here. So the mean sepal length is 5.8. Similarly, the minimum sepal width is 2. The maximum petal length is 6.9. The standard deviation for the petal width column is 0.76. So this is some interesting, there are some interesting pointers which you can directly find out by using the describe method. Then, if I want to know how many rows and how many columns are present in this particular data frame, I can use the shape method. So I'll write down iris.shape, and as you see I get the values 150, 5, which will tell you that there are 150 records and there are 5 columns. So this is a brief info about the pandas data frame, pandas library. Now we will head on to the next library, which is matplotlib. So when it comes to matplotlib, it is a visualization library. So let me just quickly head on to the matplotlib section. So with the help of matplotlib, you can create all of these different geometries. So you can create a line plot, a scatter plot, a bar plot, a histogram, and so many of the other geometries. So first what we are doing over here is to create the data, we'll be importing another library which is NumPy. So NumPy is something with the help of which we can do a lot of numerical computation. So we'll be importing that. So we'll write down import NumPy as np. Then after that, what we are doing over here is we are importing the matplot library. So I'll write down from matplotlib import pyplot as plt. So here pyplot is a submodule which is present in matplotlib, and I am giving this an alias of plt. Now once I load the required libraries, I will create the data over here. So first I will have x is equal to np.arange, and np.arange will help you to create a NumPy array where we have values within a particular range, and I'm setting the range limits over here. So the range limits are 1 and 11, and you'd have to keep in mind that the initial limit is inclusive and the final limit is exclusive, which means that I'll have values starting from 1 and going on till 10. It will not include 11 because 11 is exclusive. So here I'm creating the data for the x-axis, which I'll have over here. Then to create the data for y-axis, I'll just multiply this with 2. So 2 into x. And now 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 3 becomes 6, and so on. And then I'll just go ahead and plot this out. So here I will have plt.plot. Inside this I will pass in x and y, and I'll just write down plt.show, and as you guys see over here, I will have a straight line for this. So let me load all of the required libraries. So I'll write down import NumPy as np from matplotlib import pyplot as plt. Again, let me just wait for a couple of seconds. So we have loaded these two. I'd have to create the data now. So here x is equal to np.arange, and inside this I'll pass in 1, 11, and I'll print out x over here. Then I'll have, let's say, y, and y will just be 2 times of x. So this is what I'll have over here. I'll also print down y, and now I have values for x and y. I can directly create the plot. So I'll have plt.show. Inside this I will pass in x and y. I'll have to show this out, plt.show. This is actually plt.plot, and then I'll have plt.show. Now let me run this, and this is what we get. So now the problem is we've created this plot, but it's extremely bland. We don't have much information for this plot. So I will add a title, x-axis label and y-axis label for this. So I'll have plt.title, and I'll add the title as line plot. I'll add an x-axis label, so I'll have plt.xLabel, and I'll set the x label to be x-axis, and I'll have plt.ylabel, and I'll set this to be equal to y-axis. And as you see, I've assigned a title, the x-axis label, and also the y-axis label. So this is how we are creating this line plot. So now that we have the basic gist of the two libraries which we'll be working with, let's directly head on to our case study for today's session. So we've got this cricket dataset where we have all of the information about the different matches which were played till 2019 World Cup. So we will be analyzing all of those data. So Narasimha is asking where is the data set from. So we've taken this data set from Kaggle. So if you'd want any of these open source data sets, you can take them from Kaggle, and that is where we take most of the data sets which we use for our sessions. Right, so coming to this case study, I'll just quickly import the required libraries. Now once I import these, I have a certain, I have different data sets which I'll be working with. So I've got all of these different CSV files: World Cup players, ground averages, batsman data, bowler data, ODI match totals, and so on. So now the one main data set which I'll be working with is this. So I've got this ODI match totals.csv, and I'll be loading this by using pd.readcsv, and I'll store it in this object called as ODI Total. Abhinandan Kumar is asking which application are you using? I'm using Jupyter Notebook. So to work with Jupyter Notebook, you would have to install Anaconda first. So after you install Anaconda, you can work with Jupyter Notebook. And also I'd request you folks to not spam in the chat. So I'll try to take up most of your questions, and if I miss out on any of your questions, we'll definitely take it up in the next live session. Or you can just send us a query on GLA, and someone from our team will definitely solve you with your problem. So now that I've loaded the required library, what I'll do over here is let's say I also have this data set called as World Cup players.csv, and I'll be loading this as well. I'll start off by having a glance at all of the players who are present over here. So if you see, this players.head comprises of these three columns. I've got player ID and country. So player, we've got the player name, we've got the unique ID for the player, and the country for which this particular player hails from. Then as you see over here, initially head only gives you the top 5 records. Let's say if I give in 10 over here, I'll get the list of these 10 players. So these are the 10 players who constantly played. So this all of these data sets, they have data starting from 2013 going on till 2019 World Cup. So throughout these years, these were the list of cricketers who have consistently played for Afghanistan team. Now let's say if I instead of head, if I given tail, let's see what do we get over here. So we've got West Indies, and all of these are the players who've played for West Indies. You've got Fabian Allen, Shannon Gabriel, Hetmeyer, Shea Hope, Evan Lewis, and so on. So information about all of these players. And now, from this particular list, so as you see over here, so you've got ID, player, and country. If I'd want the list of all of the Indian players who are present in this particular data frame, I can do that with the help of this particular command. So what I'll do is, first I'll give in the name of the data frame, which is players. Then inside parenthesis, I will give in the column name. So here, as you see, the column name is country. And what I'm doing is I'm giving a condition. I'm making sure that whatever value is present in this column, that is equal to India. So now let me actually insert a cell above this and show you how this works. I'll have players. Inside this, I'll have country, and when I set this value to be equal to India, you'll see that I have a bunch of true and false values. Now, wherever you have a false value, it would mean that the condition is not satisfied. And wherever you have a true value, that would mean that the condition is satisfied. Now, these true and false values, what I'm doing is I'm just passing them through the data frame again. So when I have players, I cut this condition out and paste this back into the data frame. This is what I'll be getting. So as you see, I've got the list of all of the Indian players. So you've got Virat Kohli, who is the captain of Indian cricket team, Rohit Sharma, who is the vice captain of Indian cricket team, and we've got all of these players who were part of the 2019 World Cup. So we've got all of this information over here. Now, what I'm doing is I'm just taking this command and storing it in this new object called as Indian players. I'll just have this. And now, after we do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the ODI Total data frame, ODI Total object which I've created over here. So I'll have a glance at the first 5 records from this ODI Total data frame, and I have all of these different columns over here. So this ODI Total has different records representing each match which happened between different countries, and you've got all of these different things over here. So this, what you see, this is a match which was played between Pakistan and India, and the score which Pakistan made was 250. So, and who won the match? So if you have 1 over here, it would mean that since in the country column you have Pakistan, this particular match was won by Pakistan. Where was this match played? It was played in Kolkata. What was the date? So date was 3rd January 2013. You've got the country ID. So you've basically got country IDs representing each of these countries. So for Pakistan it is 7, for India it is 6, Sri Lanka it is 8, and so on. And now I'd want to see all of the matches which were played by India. So again, I'll be doing the same thing. This is the name of the data frame, ODI Total. I'll pass in this particular column, which is country. I'll set the value to be equal to India, and I'll store it back to the same object, India again. Now I will run this and I will print this out. And as you see over here, these are the different records which I have, and if you look at this particular column, if you look at the country column over here, you would see that all of the values are equal to India. So now if I look at this particular, if I'll just explain how it is happening over here. So this particular match was, again, so this was played between India and Pakistan, and India had lost this particular match. So if you look at this and this, so this represents the same thing. So India, Pakistan, you have ODI ID. So this is 3315, 3315. So as you see, Pakistan had made a score of 250 and India were only able to make a score of 165. And they had lost the match over here. And then we've got this particular match. So this was between India and Pakistan again. So this was won by India. And even though India scored only 167 runs, India was able to win the match. Then if we look at, let's say, this particular match, so you've got, so let's say the last 3 matches, maybe before the World Cup, India was playing Australia. So India had lost all of those 3 matches over here. So here, even though India made 281, so Australia had made 314, India was only able to make 281, and thus India lost the match. So here India set up a target of 358 and also lost the match. Here Australia set a target of 273, India were only able to make 237 and hence lost the match. So, and these matches, if you see, the last 3 matches were played in Ranchi, Mohali and Delhi. So this is the sort of inference which you get from this. Now from this entire data frame, if I'd want to extract only those records where India has won the match, you would see that we have this result column. So I'd have to extract only those records where the value in this result column is equal to 1. And that is what I'm doing over here. So India result is equal to 1, and I will store it in this object called as India when. Then I will print it out. And now if you look at this particular column, you would see that all of the values are equal to 1. So now what I'd want to do is I'd want to understand against which opponent have we won the most number of matches. So you've got this opposition column over here. So I'd want to get a frequency count since this is a categorical column. So to understand these categories or to get the frequency of these categories, we'd have this method called as value counts, and that is what we'll be using over here. So India win, in this particular, so in the parenthesis, we'll just pass in the name of the column, which is opposition. Then I will use the value counts method and I will hit on run. So you would see that during this time frame between 2013 and 2019, India has won 15 matches against Sri Lanka, 13 matches against West Indies, and 12 matches against Zimbabwe. Then, rest you have Australia 12 matches, South Africa 10 matches, England 10 matches over here. So now, if I would want to make a bar plot for this, so we have already imported the pyplot library and we've seen how pyplot works. So first I'm going to set the dimensions of the image which I'll be creating. I'll have plt.figure. Inside this I will set this parameter called as fig size and I'll set the dimensions to be equal to 8,5. Now after this, to make a bar plot, I'm just using plt.bar. And I'll explain this command to you over here. So this takes in all of these parameters. The first parameter is India opposition dot value counts 0 to 5 keys. So till here it's the same thing. So this is the command. Now if I want to make a bar plot for only the top 5 entries over here, what I'll do is I'll have a parenthesis over here and I'll just given, I'll set this to be equal to 0:5. And now if I want only the categories over here, I will use the keys method. So when I given the keys method, I will only get the categories and I'll not get the values. And this is what I am passing in as the first parameter to this bar, to this plt.bar. Then the second parameter what I'm passing in is the values. So I'll just remove this dot keys method, and this, when I pass in this, I'll get only 15, 13, 12, 10, 10, and that is what I'll be passing over here. Then I am setting the color over here. So color is equal to green, and this I will, so when I just have color is equal to G, this is what I'll have over here, plt.show, and as you see, I am able to make a simple bar plot out of this. So India has won most number of matches against Sri Lanka, followed by West Indies, followed by Zimbabwe, Australia, and South Africa. So let me actually quickly head on to the chat. I see that most of you would want the dataset link over here. So I'll just show you where I've got this dataset. So just write down Cricket World Cup dataset Kaggle and click over here. And let me just open this particular link over here. Let me see if this is the right link. This is not the right link. Let me just go back again. Right, this must be the link if I'm not wrong. Yes, right. So just type in Cricket World Cup data Kaggle, and this is the these are all of the data sets which I'm using over here. Right now the data set which I'm working with is this ODI match totals.csv. So you guys can go ahead and download this data set from over here. And if you would want the code file and the presentation which I've used today, you can get it in the link which would be provided in the chat. So Lakshmi Narayanan, if you'd want the code file, you can get it. So someone would have put the link in the chat over there. You will get the PPT which I've used today and also the code file which I'm using today. Kumar Rohit is asking Hindi session kab aayega? Well, we'll be doing a Hindi session soon. Again, so if you want to know the schedule of the next set of sessions that we are doing, you can just go to Great Learning Academy. You can see what are the next set of sessions coming up. Alright, so now that we've done this, we'd want to do a similar analysis for the matches India has lost. So for that, what I'll do is I'll have India result, and this time I would set the result to be equal to lost, and this I will store it in this object called as India loss. And again what I'll do is I would want to check the value counts, India loss opposition dot value counts, and this tells me that during this time period of 2013 to 2019 India has lost the most number of matches against Australia. So India has lost 13 matches against Australia, 8 matches against New Zealand, 8 matches against England, 8 matches against New Zealand. So somehow it would seem that India was able to perform better against the lower ranked teams, and India did not really perform that well against the higher ranked teams. Because if you look at this, India has a lot of wins against Sri Lanka, West Indies and Zimbabwe during this time period, which maybe, though India has won the matches, but then again they were quite low ranked during this time period. And if you look at this over here, India has lost matches against Australia, England and New Zealand, which tells you that maybe they were, the quality of the batting or the bowling from the Indian team was not really up to the mark, and that is why maybe they did not win the 2019 World Cup. So here I am going to do a similar plot. First, what I'll do is I will set the figure size, so plt dot fig size, and I'll set it to be equal to 8,5. Then again, I'm making a bar plot out of this. So India lost a position dot value counts, and I would want to get I would want to make this bar plot for only the top 3 teams over here. So I'll have 0 to 3, and since I want only the categorical data, I'll have Australia, England and New Zealand. Then if I would want the values, I will pass in the same command without the dot keys method. Then again, I'm setting the color. So now let me just change the color. Instead of green, let me actually make it red. And I am printing out the plot over here. You would see that India has lost the most number of matches against Australia. Then you have England and New Zealand closely falling behind. And now, if I would want to make a pie chart for this, so pie chart will basically give me a distribution of, what percentage of matches have we lost against different teams. So again, I'm setting a figure size over here. So plt dot figure size is equal to 7,7, and when I am making this pie chart, I will have plt dot pie, and when it comes to a pie chart, the parameters what you pass in is sort of opposite of what you do with a bar plot. So here first we'll be passing in the numerical entries, then we'll be passing in the categorical values. So first we will have India lost a position dot value counts over here. So first we'll get all of the numerical entries, then we'll have the labels. So labels are basically the categorical values. So here India lost a position dot value counts dot keys. Then to set the percentage values, I will have this new attribute called as auto PCT, and I am setting percent 0.1 f percent. So this 0.1 will mean that the percentage will be till the first decimal value. And I'll just go ahead and run on this, and you would see that if we look at the overall losses, out of them 26.5% of the losses have come against Australia, 16.3% losses have equally come against England and New Zealand, 12.2% losses against South Africa, 10.2% against West Indies, and so on. So this is how you can create all of these beautiful visualizations. So now, as we had analyzed this for Team India, similarly we'd want to do an analysis for Australia as well. So now from this ODI total data frame, I'm setting the country value to be equal to Australia, and I will store it back in Australia over here. And now I don't want to do a similar analysis where Australia team has won. So here, as you see, country is Australia, and you have the result column over here. I'd want to analyze all of those records where the value of result is equal to 1. So Australia result is equal to 1. I'll store it in this object called as Australia win. Then I'd want to see the value counts. You would see that Australia has won 14 matches against England, 13 matches against India, and 13 matches against Pakistan. Now I will again make a bar plot for the top 3 teams against which Australia has won the most number of matches. So the command is pretty much the same, plt.bar. First we will pass in the categorical entries, next we will pass in the numeric values. And this is what we have. So most number of matches against England, India and Pakistan. Similar sort of analysis where Australia has lost the matches. So Australia result is equal to lost, and this I'll store in Australia loss, and I'll look at the value counts method over here, and you would see that. So if you look at this, so Australia has won the most number of matches against England, and Australia has also lost the most number of matches against England. Similarly, the second most against which Australia has won is India. Again, the second most against which the Australia has lost is India. So third position, Australia had won 13 matches against Pakistan. Over here you would see that Australia has lost 11 matches against South Africa. But if you look at this, so it would seem that Pakistan was never really able to perform well against Australia over here. So in this time period, Australia had won 14 matches. So Australia had won 13 matches against Pakistan, and Pakistan had won only one match against Australia during this time period. So this is something you will get to know over here. So this is an analysis for the Australian team, and now we'll do a similar sort of analysis for England. So from the ODI total, I am setting the country value to be equal to England, and I will store that in this object called as England. So here, this is what I have. If you look at this country column, you will have England. You'll have result, which will tell you if England has won this match or not. You will have the opposition column over here, and I am setting a condition over here where result is equal to 1, and I'll store it in this object called as England win. Then I'll look at the value count so that I know against which team has England won the most number of matches. So England has won the most number of matches against Australia, then followed by West Indies, then followed by New Zealand. And I'll do a similar sort of analysis where England has lost the matches. You would see that England has, again, so if you see at this, England has won the most number of matches against Australia and also lost the most number of matches against Australia. Then England has lost 11 matches against Sri Lanka and 10 matches against India. It would seem that England is, was not really able to perform that well in the, South Asian subcontinent. So they weren't really able to play that well against India and Sri Lanka. So this is all of the analysis which we have done with respect to today's session. So I'll quickly head to the chat. So Narsimha is saying that she's not able to get the course material. So is that the case with everyone? If you could let me know if others are able to get the course material, or is it only a problem with Narsimha? Maybe we can sort this out. If you guys could quickly let me know. If others are able to access the course material, then it's fine, and if others are also not able to access the course material, then maybe we'll see what the problem is from our end, and we'll quickly add the relevant course material over here. Could I get a quick confirmation in the chat, please? Okay. Ananda and Rama says they're able to get the code. So Narsimha, so maybe you're not able to access it properly, so if you could just check it again. So yes, this will be it from my side today. Thank you very much for attending the session, and let's meet whenever I take the next live session. Thank you very much, and stay safe.